Okay, here is my quickie tutorial on using Inkscape to cut out images for Hueforge printing. Please understand that I'm by no means a professional at this. If you've used Inkscape before and you're familiar with it, you're probably better at this than I am. If not, though, I wanted to just give you a real simple explanation of what I use Inkscape for and how it works to hopefully make it a tool that you can add to your tool belt for preparing images. I'm using Inkscape on Windows, and this is, I think, a little older version of Inkscape, so some of the icons might look a little bit different, but they should all work pretty much the same. Alright, let's get going. So to start off with, we're going to open Inkscape, and I'm going to just drag the picture I want to work with in. You can see Inkscape puts a background in here, a page size, but I don't even use that for this purpose, so we're just going to kind of move it off to the side so that we don't get in the way of it. I'm going to start with using this tool here to just create curves and straight lines, and we're going to start by just clicking from one spot to the next spot to the next spot. We're just making short line segments here with each one, and we're just going to real roughly outline the shape of what we want to get rid of. We're just doing a left click to each one, stretch to the next location, left click. Don't hold down the left click button, just click it and then move to the next one, click and move to the next one, and keep on clicking through. Now, if you make a mistake with doing it, it's real easy to fix this. That's all you're going to do is you're going to hit backspace. I'll show that here in a minute. As we're going down, you're just going to do some clicking here. You don't have to worry about being super precise, just get close to what you want. We're going to do a lot of additional editing later here shortly, so just kind of keep clicking around. Zoom in and out as you need to try to make sure you get a good idea of that you're selecting what you want to. Sometimes when you get zoomed in close, it's hard to know exactly what is or isn't something that you want to use. Especially when you're using an older photo like this one that's black and white. So here I'm showing that if you click off by mistake somewhere you don't want to, I'm just going to hit backspace and it undoes that last click, and then I can just go back to what I was doing and go around. Here's another spot where it's really hard to know for sure what is or isn't part of the uniform, the pants of of Bobby Lane that I'm cutting out here. He's a football player for American football player for Detroit Lions back in the 1950s. So you just do the best you can, and it doesn't really matter if you slice something off that you're not supposed to, because no one's ever going to know. Once you get it cut out, everything's going to be just fine with what you're doing. So just keep clicking around, making these lines. What you want to try to do is you don't want to click always on the peaks and valleys, but rather you want to click somewhere that's halfway between the peaks and valleys. That just produces a little bit better curves for what we're doing. So just keep going around, clicking on what you need to. Now here, some of this area is probably grass at the bottom, but again, it's not going to matter too much, and I'll go a little bit more into detail once we start making the actual curves. But just stick with clicking around. You can make these things as big or small as you want. You don't want them too tiny, otherwise you're doing a lot of editing. And you don't want necessarily too huge either, because that kind of reduces the amount of detail that you can have in the curves, especially like right here. You can see where there's a lot of ridges in the pants from bending his knees. So we get a little bit tighter there, and then in some of the other areas where there isn't as much change, we're going to go a little bit bigger size. So again, try to click around. You don't want to necessarily want the peaks and valleys, but just in between, so that when we make the curves later, they look a little bit more uniform and organic. And I can see again here I made a mistake, so backspace gets rid of that last button or last node that we created. So again, click, And as you can see here, you can backspace a bunch of times. So if you do a bunch of mistakes, just keep hitting backspace until you get to where you were, and then go around and fix what you need to. We're going to keep clicking around here. And I'm going to speed up a little bit here just so that you guys don't get too bored of me just clicking around. So as I finish up the side of the player here, I'm going to go just a little bit faster so that it isn't too boring. And now we're here at the end, and once you get near the end, once you double click, that ends your path that you've been creating. Now you can see here I made a mistake and I double clicked too soon. Not a problem. We're just going to click on that last dot, the last node that I created, and I'm going to keep drawing my line, and then click on that one again, and there we've completed it. So if you double click, don't worry about it, just click on the last one and start over. Now we use this node editing button here, and you can see when I do that and I click on it, all those little node buttons show up. And I want to change this to green to make it easier to see, but if you just click on green, it fills in the whole thing. That's not what we want. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to hold down Shift and click my green, and when I do that, it changes the outline to green, not the fill, just the outline. So now it's just easier to see when I'm doing my editing around here. Now, the other thing that you can sometimes happen when you're doing things here, you might make a mistake and you might accidentally delete a section or not have a section completely put together right. So I'm going to remove a chunk here and show you how to stitch something together. So again, we're going to use the same tool, but this time I'm not going to click on that same dot. I'm going to click near it, and you can see that once I double click here to end that, I've got two paths that are not connected. So now I'm going to show you how to connect them. Again, go to your node tool, and you can see I've got the black line selected right now. I'm going to hold down Shift, and with the node tool, I'm going to then click on the green, and now you can see I have both selected because all those little dots showed up on both the green and the black line. Now I'm going to select both. I'm going to drag over to have both of these two dots selected. You can see they're a little bit different color than those others there. And I'm going to go up, and I'm going to use this button here, which makes these 2 points the same point. So when I click on it, it just joined those two together. And you can see now it's just one path because I've got everything selected. Now I still have a gap down here at the bottom. So I'm going to show you another way that you can join 2 points together to make it into a complete path. So we're going to select it, and I'm going to drag over to select those two dots. And now I'm going to use this tool to create a line segment between them. So it just join those with an additional line. Sometimes it's better to do that than to join the two. In this case, I really want the two joined though, so I'm just going to go back and undo what I did and make them one dot. Now, if you need to get rid of one of these nodes, you can select it here and then use this tool to just delete that node. And you can see it just takes it away and just joins the other two with a single line instead of two separate lines. We can also add a node later, and I'll show you how to do that when we get further into it. So again, I've changed it green by holding down Shift and clicking green to change my outline, just to make it easier to see, make it easier to do what I need to do. So when I have the node selector tool selected here, so all my little dots show up, now I can just click on this outline and I can just start dragging it around. And I just drag it to make the curves that I want to curve and try to outline the figure here that I want to cut out as best that I can. And you can see here you can drag, the bottom of the curve one way, the top of the line the other way, and you can kind of get this slight S curve to it. Just feel free to drag around here as much as you want to try to get the shape to look good. You want to try to get the two joints to line up well. You can click on that dot, and when you do that, these little handles show up. Sometimes it's easier to grab those handles and use that to kind of get the shape that you're looking for. Sometimes I find it easier to grab the line and just do that. So, but I use a mix of both. Again, whatever works for you, whatever you're comfortable with. And you can see these lines obviously are fully editable. We can always go back in and change things around a little bit if we need to. I'll do that a few times here as we go through. But just go through and drag them however you need to drag them. You can also move the dots, the nodes up and down or left and right if you want to a little bit to kind of change where the bends are, where the curves are. Now here's one area where I had to, have a little bit more of a sharp turn, and that's fine because that's what's in the figure around the neck there. And then we just go through and we keep going and make our bends and curves however we want them to be. Again, you might end up cutting off little bits here and there. It's not a big deal because no one's going to see that after we're done with whatever work we want to do with this. No one's going to know if you chop something off or not. Furthermore, if you accidentally include a little something, because of the way that we're going to mix this in with Hueforge and how Hueforge is going to adjust some of the colors, most people won't even notice if you include something that you didn't mean to include. Okay, we're going to super speed up here a little bit here so you guys don't get too bored with listening to me and watching me just make a lot of curves, bend things in and out. Feel free to try, practice with this. You can always undo using either the edit menu or Control Z in Windows, and there's probably also a keyboard shortcut in Macintosh that I'm not familiar with, but play around with it, just practice, and you'll find it's easier than you think. You'll get good at it real quick. Okay, right up here as I'm finishing the one leg and moving to the other, I felt like I needed an additional point here, additional node. There's a lot of ways to do this in Inkscape. I find the easiest way is to just, when you have the node path selected, wherever you want to have that additional point, just go to that area on the line. Make sure you have your path selected, double click, and you can see there's a new point right there. So when you put that in, it usually makes it not a corner, so you might have to change it to a corner. So click on it. You can see how this is a straight line on those two handles. We're going to go up to this tool here and click that. That makes it into a corner, which means those two handles are not connected anymore. So now I can move those handles around independent from each other. That gives me more flexibility in what I need to do to make the curves the way I want them to show up. So that just gives you the better flexibility in what you're doing. All right, and we'll go back to high speed here, get the rest of these lines all put together how we want them to be. Note on the bottom of the shoe here, it's rather flat. You might think that's a mistake, but it's actually not, because Bobby Lane was one of their primary kickers as well. So used a straight shoe on the bottom to help with the way that they kicked back then. Okay, making the final little adjustments here to these, and then we are done with the original, or the initial cutout. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to save it, just so we don't lose anything. And then I'm going to go up to my regular selection, not the node selection tool, but the regular selection tool here. I'm going to click on the green outline, and then I'm going to click on the background as well. And now you can see I have two things selected here. I have the background and I have the green outline selected. And I'm going to Object, Cut, Set. And when I do that, it cuts out that outline from the picture and gets rid of everything else. Now I can kind of look at it, get an idea of what it looks like, see if I need to make any adjustments or changes. Overall, I think it looks pretty good here. There is one area, the shoes can sometimes get messed up, but I think we're okay in this case. That's one area where I sometimes need to fix things though, but I do see right here where I'd like to get this cut out. That isn't part of the player or the uniform, so we need to get that cut out. So we'll do that here quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Object, Clip, and now, or excuse me, cut and release. And when I do that, excuse me, I have to select the object first, and we'll try that again. Release, now everything goes back to the way it was. So I've got my outline, I've got my background. So I'm going to zoom in. I go back to my same tool that I was using before. That one right there. And I'm going to make a quick little triangle in here. And this time I'm going to shift, click the yellow so that it's a little more visible. Remember, shift click to change the outline. And then again, go to my node edit tool. And I can drag my lines around a little bit, make them how I want them to be. That looks pretty good, I think. Now, I want this to be subtracted from my green thing, my green outline. So I'm going to select both of them. You see they're both selected because you can see the dots for both. Then I'm going to go up to Path, and then I'm going to select this right here, and that tool makes that section cut out from the rest. So you can see now it's just one object. If I move it around a little bit, you can see how it all one object now. And I'm going to go undo what I just did so that I can move my outline back to right where it was before. So now when I select my outline and my background, and then go to Object and set the clip. There we go. And you can see that little triangle's cut out now. So we're doing pretty good here. We've got our shape. That looks good. I think we're ready for the next part, which is the actual cutout of different pieces from this player here so that we can have a couple of different prints in Hueforge. So I'm going to go back here, I'm going to release, and the reason I do this is I want a second one of these green outlines. So I'm going to duplicate this. There's a couple of ways you can do this in Inkscape. You can either do Control D on your keyboard, or from Edit menu you can click the duplicate from here. There's probably a shortcut, keyboard shortcut in Macintosh. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. So now I've got two green outlines here. You can see if I move it over, I've got one and the original there as well. Okay, so now I'm going to select one of those outlines, and the background I'm going to clip again, and now I've got my cutout as well as my green as well. So I've got my green outline around there, which I'll need for later use here. We'll get into that in just a second, but you can see I've got the nice cutout and I've got the outline around everything as well. So now we're going to cut out the skin tones and the leather ball to have that as a separate print once we get into Hueforge. So I'm going to go back, use the same tool again, and we'll start around the face here. And again, we're just going to draw line segments. Click, let go, click, move to the next spot, click, 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 click. Just keep going around. Create the rough drawing of what you want to have. I complete that. Shift and click on the light blue there, just to make it easier to see. Go back to my node edit tool. You know the drill by now. We're just going to drag these around a little bit to make them look good. And again, we'll speed up through some of this boring repetitive stuff. Just kind of keep moving around however you need it to make it look as good as you can. But remembering again that once you clip some of these things out, nobody's going to know what was or wasn't part and what wasn't or wasn't supposed to be part of it. So there's the first section there. Everything looks good. We'll save. And now I need to cut out the neck area. Now you'll notice that the neck area goes right up to the edge here, so we're going to cheat a little bit. We're going to start by clicking by this green area on the green outline here, and I'll outline around what I need to. Going down around the neck, and then once we get here to the green, I'm just going to click somewhere out, way outside the green area, and then back to complete my path. Double clicking on that last node to get everything set. Change it to blue by holding down shift and left clicking on the color, and I drag my paths around, make everything look nice and pretty. And the area that's outside of the green path, I'm going to just completely ignore. I'm going to leave that alone. Now, it's going to be easier here to have these two paths, these two light blue paths, as one object instead of two. So I'm going to select both of them by holding down Shift and clicking on each one, so they're both selected now. And then we're going to go up to the Path tool menu, and we are going to select the union, and that just puts these two together as one object. So you can see if I move it around, it just moves as one piece. Alright, so we got the neck done, we've got the face done. Now let's move down and look at the hands. And the ball, of course, too. So again, same thing here. I'm just clicking around, and we'll try to make this a little bit faster as well. Again, you can see here I've got a spot that goes outside of the green, so we just go make a nice big spot outside, and then we continue on with making our path. You know the drill by now. Just click, make your lines, go back to your note editing tool, go around, make all the paths look fancy and nice. Once we get to this area here, we ignore that when it's outside the green. Now again, we've got this finished, and I want to do the same thing I did before. I want to combine this with the two blue areas up above. So I'm going to select, hold down Shift to select both the items. I'm going to go to the Path menu and do Union again. And that makes them all one path. That will just make it easier for when I need to do some more editing here in a little bit. Okay, so now I've got the cutouts of what I need. I've got the green outline of the full body. Next thing I need to do is I need a duplicate of this blue path. So again, I'm going to go make a duplicate of it, Control D, or from the Edit menu, select Duplicate. You can see now I have two of those blue ones. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the blue, and I'm also going to select the green. Just one of the blues, select the green. And then from the path, I want the intersection. I want anything that's selected by blue and also selected by the green. So it has to be something that's in both of those sections. So we go path, we go intersection, and when I do that, you can see my new green path is just the area that both of those had selected. So those little cutout areas where that extra blue is, you can see those become straight up where the green was before. Okay, so now let's get rid of this blue path because we don't need that anymore. I just wanted you to see how that changed when we did the intersection with the green path with the other blue path there. So now we've got our green path, which is a cutout of the skin and football tones, and we've of course got our figure that we've cut out originally. Now I'm going to need a duplicate of both the green part, and I'm going to need a duplicate of the back. So again, either Control D or from Edit, select Duplicate. That gives me a second green path here. And then I also need a duplicate of the figure that we've cut out previously. So I'm going to click on that in just a second here, and same thing, Control D or from Edit, Duplicate. When you do that, you can see it's going to put it on top of everything else that I've got there, which we don't want. We want it underneath the stuff. So there's a couple of ways, again, that you can do this in Inkscape. When you have the figure selected, you can hit Page Down to move it down below one thing, or multiple times to get it moved down below various other things. You can also do it from the Object menu here. You can see the same things. Lower or lower to the bottom is the End key on the keyboard. Like I said, a couple different ways you can do it. I'm sure there's shortcuts in Macintosh as well, but again, I don't know what those are. So we're just going to move it all the way to the bottom here. And then what we need to do is we're going to take one of these green outlines, now that they're on top of everything else. I'm going to select that, and then we're going to select one of the figures in the back. And we're again going to do Object, Clip, and Set. And when we do that, now I've got just the skin tones and the football as one separate object. And because I did a duplicate of that green path before, I still got one of those, which we'll need again here in a minute. Okay, now to prepare the background for these images so that they're the same size, or that they're the same size of what I would normally do when I'm doing one of these, I'm going to move this out of the way by just drawing a box around the whole thing so I can kind of shove it to the side a little bit. Then I'm going to grab the square tool. I'm going to make a box. I really don't care what the size of it is. We'll change that in a minute. So I just drag the box in there, click, drag, and let go to create the box. Then I'm going to go to my normal selection tool. So select the box, and then you can see, first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the background. So I'm just going to click this X here, not shift click, just regular click, and that gets rid of the background. It's a very light line here. I'm going to change it red so it's maybe a little bit easier to see. I don't know if that light blue is showing up well or not on the screen. So now it's red. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to change the dimensions of it. So I want 200 by 200. And you can see my box there is quite a bit smaller than what I've been working on. So I'm going to need to resize my figure. So again, I'm going to click around this so that I select everything here that I want. Now I'm going to hold down Control on my keyboard while I resize it. And by holding down Control, when I grab this corner and resize it, it maintains the aspect ratio. No matter how I move that mouse around, it's always going to maintain that aspect ratio so that it doesn't get, out of whack as far as too wide or too narrow, too tall, whatever. See, if I don't hold Control, it gets all goofy real quick. And I'm going to go Edit, undo that to get it back to what it's supposed to be. I'm going to hold down Control, and then I can resize it how I want to get it so that it fits inside my 200 by 200 box pretty well. Now I have a Bamboo Labs printer, so when I print, it will automatically create a purge block tower off to the side on the right hand side. So that's why I kind of moved my guy over to the left here. That way it's just automatically out of the range of where the purge tower normally goes, which is right about there. Okay, so I've got that size pretty good. Things are looking nice. Getting close to being done here. And so we're just about finished. We'll save again to make sure I don't lose anything. Now, I need to duplicate this red box. So again, Control D, or from the Edit menu, duplicate, so that I have two of those. Now I'm going to select that box that I just duplicate I created, and holding down Shift, I'm also going to select the skin tone cutout that I did before. So you can see I've got those two selected, and then I'm just going to use my left button on my keyboard to just slide those over to the side. So now I've got one box for the skin tones, and I've got one box of everything else. Over here, I'm going to select that green duplicate path that I created before, because I need to create a black area for me to mount the brown stuff that I'm going to create later on. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to click on the black, so you can see it now filled that. Now I'm going to do Shift click so that the outline also turns black. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to the stroke style, and you can see it's a pretty narrow one right there. I'm going to change that to 0.5 millimeters. And what that does, you can see it just increased the outline around here a little bit. And that's going to make the black space slightly larger than the other piece that I'm going to have off to the side here. Makes it just a little bit easier to fit them together later. You still might have to do a little bit of trimming and clean up to make everything fit perfectly, especially if there's a lot of little curves and intricate parts, but that just helps a little bit with what you need to do. Okay, we are real close to being done here. Now I just need to create two images from these so that I can put them into Hueforge to do my painting from there. So we'll start by, on this side, we're going to get rid of that red line by shift clicking on that X to get rid of the color. Now the box is still there, you just can't see it. But that's good because that lets us, when I select around here, this gives me my 200 by 200 box along with my inside edges that I need there, inside cutout. So I've got the box and that selected, and we're going to export this as a PNG. So we'll go up in here, export PNG. It's also, if you've used it before, it'll show up in your toolbar on the left here, but just to show you where it is in the menu. You want to make sure you have selection selected here so that you're saving just what you've selected. We're going to go and give it a name. And I'm going to call it Lane for Bobby Lane. Lane Brown, because this is the bronze hues that I'm going to be putting together for this one. So we hit OK. Some versions of Inkscape, once you hit OK, it saves it off. Some of the older versions, you have to then go and click on this export button, and that's what actually creates the file. So just make sure you do that if you're using an older version of Inkscape. Now we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to get rid of that red first. Remember, shift click to get rid of the border color. The box is still there, but you can't see it. We select around it, select that plus the figure. And again, make sure you've got selection clicked over here on the side after we do export PNG. We want to make sure that it's selection so that it's just saving what we have selected on the screen. I'm going to give it a name. This one's going to be Lane Blue because this will be the blues and the grays for the uniform. Export or hit OK, then again export. That creates the file, and that's it. That's how I do my cutouts using Inkscape for Hueforge. I find it, I know this is kind of a lengthy process, but this is because I was kind of talking you through everything here. I find this works better than using something like GIMP or Paint.net or Photoshop. At least it does for me. If this looks like a good thing for you, I hope that it works great for you, and thank you for watching.